The world needs stable U.S. China relations. That's what Xi Jinping told Secretary of State Antony Blinken this week during an unscheduled meeting in Beijing. Our next guest believes relations with China must focus on the CCP's behavior, primarily in the area of human rights and genocide against ethnic Uyghurs. Salih Hudayar is Prime Minister of the East Turkistan Government-in-Exile. Salih, it's good to talk with you again. So I'm assuming you feel Secretary of State Blinken missed an opportunity here to raise concerns about the Uyghurs and the issue of human rights. So should he have avoided making the trip to Beijing as tensions between the two countries simmer? Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think he should have avoided going to Beijing. First, the first priority should have been demanding that Beijing apologize for violating American airspace and American sovereignty with its spy balloons and other, malign activities and espionage activities that's been carrying out. However, instead of doing that, I think the Biden administration has been pursuing a policy of appeasement for whatever reasons, and they are failing to, uphold their commitments to human rights, their commitments to American sovereignty and freedom, and their commitments to, upholding American values.
And the Chinese government says the Uyghurs are Islamic terrorists, and the way China manages them is an internal matter. Now, the United States and other nations have labeled China's treatment of the Uyghurs as genocide. Doesn't seem that assuaged China to change its behavior. Why not?
Well, because there's no, effective international pressure. The issue of East Turkestan and China, it's not a so-called internal affairs matter as China claims to, for it to be. On the contrary, it's a, international conflict between an occupied nation versus an occupying or invading nation. It's very much like, the relationship between Russia and Ukraine. Whereas with Russia and Ukraine, you have the international community supporting Ukraine and taking strong actions and measures against Russia. Whereas with our situation, other than giving lip service, the international community has failed to do anything meaningful to hold China accountable for its ongoing genocide and other atrocities that it's committing against the people of East Turkestan.
And we've detailed a lot of those over the years, the atrocities being committed against the Uyghur people, not just the imprisonment and the forced labor, but also forced abortions, all kinds of things, taking their organs. So beyond the Uyghur issue, though, Christians are also suffering in China. This spring, members of an entire congregation, the Mayflower Church, received asylum here in the United States after they fled persecution in China. So how concerned are you about the treatment of people of other faiths?
Well, it's very concerning because the Chinese Communist Party, it's a atheist party. It views all religions, whether it's Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, or any religions, as a threat to its power. So it's been, engaging in efforts to stamp out religion at all levels. Officially, it claims that it supports religion, but it's trying to, sinicize it to where it's essentially whatever, way that the Chinese Communist Party wants. So there's no, ability for Christians to truly practice Christianity. There's no ability for Muslims to practice Islam or Buddhists to practice Buddhism without the Chinese Communist Party interfering and controlling everything that goes on.
What other concerns, Salih, do you have about the CCP's conduct?
Well, the longer that we fail to hold the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese government accountable, the more aggressive that they're going to get. As we already saw, even before this meeting, this last week, they were coming close to ramming a U.S. naval ship. I mean, these are, blatant acts of aggression by the Chinese government, even before the previous, scheduled meeting that Secretary Blinken was supposed to have with China. They floated their spy balloon across the United States and essentially, slapping them in the face in a diplomatic way. Even the way that they greeted Secretary Blinken, for other small nations, foreign ministers and government officials, they hold massive, lavish, greeting ceremonies, but for Secretary Blinken, there was not even a red carpet. There was very few officials greeting them. So that in itself was a big slap in the face to the United States, and it's shameful that the Biden administration has decided to proceed with that. If it had been any other country or any other administration, they would have just hop back onto the plane and be like, no, thank you. You're going to disrespect me. Why should I even continue, engaging with you?
Yeah, I think they showed more respect to Bill Gates when he visited Xi Jinping. So what would you like to see happen at this point? What does the Biden administration need to do?
Well, the Biden administration first, needs to unequivocally condemn China's ongoing genocide in East Turkestan. They need to make it clear that there can be no negotiations, no trade whatsoever with China until it ends its ongoing genocide in East Turkestan. It needs to make it clear to Beijing that it won't tolerate Beijing's acts of aggression or violations of American sovereignty or airspace, or its espionage activities inside the United States. The U.S. government knows everything that China is doing. It knows a lot about all the Chinese operatives here in the United States. It needs to act to prosecute them and to expel those Chinese diplomats that are supporting these Chinese operatives.
And now a spy center 90 miles from the U.S. coast in Cuba. Okay, Salih Hudayar, Prime Minister of the East Turkistan Government-in-Exile, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.